Hello?
Hey everybody, welcome to our Q&A miscellany wrap up session.
Wrap up,
Um,
even though there's two more sessions after this.
yeah, I mean,
Mid wrap.
let's call it like tying a bow on the sessions
Hmm.
that have happened. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think Jeopardy would call it potpourri, right? Which I've always
you
found
say
weird.
so.
I don't really watch Jeopardy, so. um, but yeah, basically, if you have questions, drop them in Discord and we'll cover them.
Hmm.
We have a couple things that we thought would make sense to follow up from some of the stuff we did today. Um, right off the bat, Pilot, do you want to mention what you just linked in Discord, and I'll pull that up and share my screen here.
Yeah, for sure. So in our previous session, we were talking about the mass mail tools that are available in WHMCS. And I didn't have time to go look for it during the session, but it's not in the migration tools section. It's in our WHMCS in depth section. We do have documentation on how to send mass email blasts. And it covers how to set up a client group. So that's one of the things that we were talking about, but we didn't have time to demo. It covers setting up templates and being able to to load them as you need. And it covers a lot of what we talked about. It doesn't specifically mention the fill in the blanks that we were talking about, but that we showed off a little bit how to use that in the past one.
Yeah, and I'll mention here that I pulled up. I have here, and I can share this in the Discord or somehow. But here's an example of what one of those may look like. This is one that was sent by SNC end of 2021. I was going to say I read this one, but this actually may be one of my former coworkers. But this is a good example of using those fill in the blanks. So client first name, which we did, service domain, which let them display the domain name of the person it was sending to and link to it. And that was in the product service related section, basically. I wanted to point that out specifically because that's just a really great feature. You may get it's always surprising to me, but you may get students or faculty or staff who have signed up who literally don't even remember that they did. So
Yeah.
being able to mention what it is and link to it can be really handy for them, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, I will. I'll copy the text of this and maybe throw it in Discord for reference for folks.
Mhm.
And yeah, there it is. If it's useful to anybody. Um, we got a couple other things lined up, but Amanda, is there anything that you wanted to get into before I continue?
No, I think I was looking forward to talking a bit about the different kinds of backups that are available in
Yeah.
for folks, because we did touch
Yeah.
on one earlier, but
Mhm.
there is another.
Okay, so we talked about Jet Backup in the common troubleshooting tips section, but we didn't really talk about there's another whole backup option in Domain of One's Own that is good to know about, and that's the Installatron backups. And if you're unfamiliar, we show the Jet Backup one. I'm in here in my shared hosting account, but again, this is very similar. Not similar. It's exactly the same. This looks the same as what you'll get on Domain of One's Own. So if you go to the cPanel of a particular account and then My Apps, you will see, of course, all of the applications they've installed. I've got a couple here. And then you'll see backups that are for each account. So each of these have one backup. You can also click on My Backups to see all of them on one screen and download copies of them to save for later or restore them. Super handy feature. The thing, though, that can get you in trouble is that these backups on Domain of One's Own take up a space in the account. So if you have, say, a 1 GB quota for your accounts and someone has like a 600 megabyte, so 60% of the account site, and it tries to back up, they're already over quota, right? Because it's pretty much an exact copy in terms of size. So that can be problematic. So while that is on by default, we do have some admins that want to change those settings for the entire server so that nobody ever has this. In some cases, it even makes sense, I think, to just disable Installatron backups because we have Jet Backup, and that really covers pretty much the same use case, but does even more than Installatron backups. The thing that's nice about Installatron backups and why we don't disable it is I think it's friendlier for end users who want to restore backups themselves to be able to see that they're stored here right next to where the applications live in their account. Whereas for Jet Backup, they'll need to know they need to restore a database and a folder if that's the case.
Yeah.
So we do have I linked it in Discord, but we do have this entire article here on limiting the Installatron backups if you do want to make those kinds of changes.
Mm-hmm.
So you would essentially go to the your WHM, you would search for Installatron, and you can change the quota. So you can say, oh, let's have only 1 instead of 2. 2 is the default amount of backups it stores. You can also just turn off the ability to have, say, permanent backups that never expire. You can even set up different locations for backups. So like I said, by default they're stored in the user's account, but if you wanted to, you could set up an S3 bucket for things to get stored into, and then that wouldn't take up space in their account. You can also change the quota to have like storage limitations, and even just turning off backups entirely via Installatron, which, like I said, can be a good idea to just not have to worry about that storage concern, given that you already have Jet Backup. None of these settings will affect your Jet Backup schedules.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And we actually we got a few minutes left here. But anything else that folks want to cover, that you all want to cover while we have a couple minutes before our Splot section?
Trying to think what we get questions about.
Because otherwise, I can also kind of talk about a few other maybe troubleshooting things that come up from time to time in Domain of One's Own. We do have another entire article really just about common troubleshooting errors and common troubleshooting fixes for Domain of One's Own specifically. I'm going to look at this WordPress one first. This article, I think, is another really good one. Some of it was covered in our session. One of them is just on the idea of, hey, you may want to deactivate all plugins. This one assumes you do have dashboard access, or to change your plugins or theme. Another less common thing, but something that can happen, is that you may have a user that accidentally messes with their htaccess file for WordPress. And this is a hidden file by default that tells Apache, the web server, how to handle things with WordPress and basically any PHP application and static sites as well. So this is a really good guide if you ever need to A, access this file and do anything with it, and B, if you need to fix it because maybe the user deleted it, or they made a mistake changing it on accident, or sometimes if there's a compromised account, they may have malware in their account that we will clean up for you, but after the fact they may have a broken htaccess file. I think in the case of us cleaning up malware, we would probably fix the file. I mean, if there's a particular site affected, but sometimes you run into an issue where a few different sites are affected or no one notices until later, things like that. So this is a really good one. You can go in the file manager. You can delete the existing htaccess file and create a new one. And then you just need to make sure that it has this information at the top. This is what WordPress needs to do its thing. So I think this is a really good really good option. This also talks about some other things you can do with the WP config file. You can increase the memory limit. Fun fact: the broken plugin that I put together, suite that I was using in our demo, I could have actually fixed it this way by just bumping this limit up, but that wouldn't have made for a good demo of what I wanted to demo actually. But just to note that there are some times where if a user has like a lot of different plugins going on a particularly heavy site, you may need to fix this limit. This is pretty rare, but it's a good thing to know about. And then finally, I'm going to kind of skip over this WP admin include folders. This is what you call a replacing like WordPress core, and is pretty rare. I've only had to do this like once or twice, but sometimes if they really mess up their WordPress folder, you may need to actually replace the core files of WordPress. We do have a article on that as well that you can check out that links from here. But I think is more common is issues with the WP config file, and that is something where you can fix. Maybe they've modified the database settings and then you need to fix that. So basically this whole article is honestly a gold mine. I reference this a lot when I'm doing support for institutions or individuals. So it is very thorough, and I think definitely worth a look if you want to look at something yourself. But of course, you can always reach out to us to get that support as well. Then the other article I mentioned, common troubleshooting fixes for domain of one's own. This is another thing that I think is nice to know about, because it's a little bit more general. It's not just WordPress specific, but if you have someone who's having trouble logging into their site that they installed via Installatron, you can reset the password of pretty much anything that Installatron can install. This is super handy because while Installatron gives you that WP-admin link that will log you in for WordPress sites, this doesn't work for most other applications. I don't think it works for Omeka. Actually, I'm pretty sure it only works for WordPress.
It does only work for WordPress.
Okay, so for most other types of applications, people will need to know their username and password. This is where they can reset it. Real common thing, good to know about. Another one, if you're having an issue where you're getting like an error that someone is being blocked from accessing something that they're hosting, that could be, in rare cases, our BitNinja firewall. We use this to help with like malicious traffic and things like that. But sometimes, depending on what's going on, there may be a false positive, and you can actually whitelist your IP. But sometimes you'll actually need to have us do it depending on the setup if that's not working for you. So you can always go to ip4.me. This will give you your IP address and send that along in a support request if you need to. And then finally, the good old browser cache. This is so often the issue. So mentioning that if you're having a weird issue that seems to be browser dependent, like you're having a problem, you've tried it in another browser and it seems to work over there, it's probably a cache thing. We actually have an article on clearing your cache. Clear cache, I think. Yeah, how to clear browser cache. This is pretty good because it actually goes through and gives you instructions on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, Opera, Brave. I should add Vivaldi, but like we're covering a lot of browsers here, and we keep it pretty reasonably up to date. Obviously, these things actually change in slight look and feel pretty often, but these
The principles are usually pretty sound.
Yeah, and I will say like these are all pretty much exactly how it is right at the moment. So like in Firefox, the main difference is it's called settings now instead of preferences. So we could probably update that screenshot. But for the most part, this is a pretty good resource. And it's kind of weirdly, as someone who's done IT support for a while now at various places, finding instructions that are out there to send to people on how to clear their browser cache is actually kind of hard to do. There used to be a lot of that you could link to, and most of those sites have gone away or like stopped updating their screenshots, or
Mhm.
are only for like Chrome and Firefox and don't cover like Safari and Brave and like the slightly less popular browsers.
Yeah.
So yeah, a
I
really
would also
handy one. The
I
other
was
one I wanted to mention that maybe is handy for you, the admin, is you can also always load a page without a cache by holding the shift key and clicking the refresh button. That
Mhm.
in every major browser will load the page without cached resources. So that's a good one to note too.
Yeah. I also want to add on the topic of clearing your cache that it's possible that sometimes there will be an issue that you troubleshoot in the way that we've already talked about. There's uh, error with WordPress, you can't get in. You fix it in one of the ways that we've talked about before, and the user comes to you and says, It still looks wrong to me. It still looks broken. Nothing's changed." Have them clear their cache. That's always step one. Um, because, sometimes it just saves the page with the error for them. Uh,
Yeah, it's so important because it's really like clearing your cache is one of those things that's like a tech support meme at this point, like turning it off and on again. But there's a reason, right? Like it is almost always an important step, depending, especially when you're dealing with web stuff. So, uh, you know, I sometimes preemptively, if I know the situation will possibly call for it, I'll say, hey, if it's not working for you, you may want to clear your cache. But if you don't do that, it's worth having this ready to go for a response if it's still not working for them, because it's really important. I would say this comes up absolutely every single day I do Reclaim support. So it's very, very vital to the process.
100%.
Yeah.
We're coming up on time now. Do either of you guys have anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll call it a session there and see everyone in just over 10 minutes for Splots.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, see everyone then. I'm excited.
See y'all there.
See you there.